Okay, we're back with part 2, and here's Bryan Parker. He's talking about the deception with the bloodline. So go ahead and take it away.
Deception by blood. Deception by blood. Well, I pretty much covered everything I've got to say in part 1. I just want people to realize that everything that we're showing, I don't care if it's stuff that they show you on TV or if it's stuff they show you in alternative media. Because some of these people are just keeping the Patriots. I call it Patriot Guru Guano. Okay. Because they're batshit crazy. I'll call it out right now. Anna Von Reitz is batshit crazy. Okay. Nothing she's got has value.
Especially when you start talking about Mars. That's crazy right there. I'm just saying.
Everybody around her ends up in freaking prison. Okay. So for like not just a stint, but like the rest of their life, 30 years. All right. So, one of the first things I stumbled on when I started researching, and a lot of people stumble on it, is this whole Patriot rabbit hole. Okay. And the Patriots, so I looked, okay, what are these? They start out basically a lot of tax protesters in the 70s, and you keep going back and go back and go back. You can go back to the Revolutionary War that was supposedly started by Patriots, which that's not what it was started by. Okay. But what happened to these Patriots? Did they ever fix anything? Did anything? No, they didn't. What happened to them? They either ended up freaking dying in prison, or a lot of them end up dying on the side of the road today. So is that the track I want to follow? No, it wasn't. So I pushed all that stuff aside and decided to go another route with my research, because what they were looking at and what they were promoting, it was just total fallacies and a lot of unactionable information. Is what I call it. This stuff that you can't use for anything.
Is that like the paper?
They want to talk about the gold fringe flag. Yeah, paper terrorism. Yeah, that's exactly what the courts refer to them as. That they call them vexatious litigants. A vexatious litigant is somebody that floods the court with a bunch of crap. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'll call another one out. David Strait. He did his not perfect affidavit or whatever he called it. I looked at it. It's not even an affidavit. It doesn't even qualify to be an affidavit. But people were clamoring on that. But though all his stuff disappeared. If it worked, you would have thought it would have snowballed and all these people would have been coming forward. I got my kids back. And no, none of that happened. Gee, I wonder why. Because there's so much bullshit being thrown out there instead of doing things, a better way. So yeah, I kind of shut my eyes to all those people and I started doing other research, like this stuff this evening with studying what are the real bloodlines. They've been talking about, how all the presidents are related and they only show you like the paternal stuff. And when I found the maternal bloodlines, the power of the seed of the woman, which is where the power is really at. I mean, come on, men, tell me this, men. Will another guy walking down the street turn your head? Or does another woman walking down the street turn your head? Yeah, the women have power, all right? And it's not just physical, it's just not what you see, but there's an energy there. There's a powerful energy. So that's why I started looking into the maternal bloodlines. And that's where you really find that everybody's related. Not just back to Charlemagne with the presidents, like they try and say, but it goes way back further. It goes back to 1200. And I've taken it, I finalized what research I have so far today and taking it back to 730 AD, another 500 years earlier than the Garcendas.
I've heard that name, Charlemagne. That's a cool sounding name. What's that? Does that come across as like a charlatan? Is that where they get that from, or is it just coincidence?
No, Yeah, probably coincidence. Yeah. King Charlemagne was a very popular king. And a lot of things I think that people don't learn in history as far as the powers go. You
Mm.
bring up Charlemagne, how the powers have switched back and forth between France and England, France and England. And a lot of this was done really through marriages. Oh gosh, we're getting back to maternal again, aren't we? The females. A lot of this was done through marriages.
Mm.
And a lot of the kings, for political reasons, they would offer their daughter to like one of the sons of the king of Spain because he will become king someday, and that way their country would have some power with Spain. And that's just kind of how the old world order worked, you know. The new world order, they convince everybody that they can go ahead and vote and think that they are actually electing somebody
Mm.
when it's actually the electoral college that does it. They don't care
They're
about the
giving you
opinion of
the
the people.
illusion of choice. It's
Yeah, the illusion of choice, the illusion of power, the illusion of being behind the steering wheel. Well, you know what? I'll tell Americans this. If you all think you're really in power, look at who we got sitting up there today. Because you all need your butts kicked if you're in power. And this is what you did. And it's not just for this one, but it's for the last one and the one behind him, too. I mean,
Are you
I started
referring to the
noticing
president
this.
in the US Corp?
Yeah.
Aren't they all related in a way?
Yeah, they're all related. Yeah, they're all related. Yeah. I mean, that's been shown over the past few years that they've all been related. And like I said, um, at one time they thought they were all related, but other than the eighth president, Martin Van Buren, but they found that Martin Van Buren is related too, which when they said they didn't know how Martin Van Buren was related, I kind of laughed because it's like, wait a minute, his first language was Dutch. Well, who speaks Dutch? Where does Dutch come from? Dutch is tied into Germany.
Deutsch.
Huh. Okay. You think he's not related? And sure enough, eventually they found that he is related, which ties it up. They've all been related. And actually, I mentioned in part one that I believe it was the Bushes and another family has been proven that they're related to Winston Churchill, but also to Boris Johnson. They're also related to Boris Johnson. So Boris Johnson, Winston Churchill, it's the same thing going on in England, even with their presidents. Even though they've got kings and queens who have all been related, guess what? Their heads of state have all been related too.
Wow. It would be really nice to see it in a genogram. A genogram, it's just like that chart that you have in the back there. And it's like a family tree.
Yeah.
And it shows how many marriages, how many deaths, how many abortions, how many children, all that type of thing. And I did that in my sociology class, and it was very interesting. We did my family, and on the opposite side, we did my husband's family. And it was so interesting to see all these people here. Oh, okay. So all these people, they died of cirrhosis of the liver. Did they have an alcohol problem or something? What happened there? Was there dysfunction there in the family? No, there wasn't, because my mom was a Christian, that's the person was saying. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So you're just doing a sliding scale. You don't want to talk about the negative. You just want to focus on the positive. And this is when you're a watchman or someone that's observing, you tend to see the errors and the misspoken things or the neglected things. Kind of like reminds me of Nehemiah in the Bible, how he went to repair the walls of Jerusalem.
I'm not hearing anything.
There you go. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, now I hear you.
I was talking about Nehemiah in the Bible, where he was seeing all the walls of Jerusalem where they had been damaged. And a lot of people, maybe each one of us, we might see problems in our society or problems in our family. And we're always mentioning, oh, this is something that we can work on. And people will say, you always notice the thing that's wrong. Well, I think that there's different people in our lives so that we can, use each one of our gifts. If we have eyes to see, we're going to be able to see, and we sometimes have to say things. If there's a deficit, it's okay to go and target on that area that needs a little strengthening or rebuilding. But I think a lot of us, we see a lot of false fronts or false towers, and we realize that we have to tear those strongholds down or those ways of thinking and throw those out and rebuild the real reinforcement. And so I kind of see that in you. I see that in myself as well. It's almost like, throwing Jezebel down, throwing that religious spirit or that queen, throwing her down out of her place, and I guess balancing things. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, well, when we throw it down, we've got to replace it with something else. We can't just trade one deception for another deception.
Exactly.
And that's what seems like people quickly do, is they run from one deception, and other deceptions are it's low hanging, easy fruit, and they grab onto that. And they don't realize that that's even a worse deception.
One of my friends from high school, he noticed that when I stopped doing Christmas and Christmas trees, because I was reading Jeremiah chapter 10, and it was talking about not doing like the heathen, where they go into the forest, chop down a tree, drag it into their house, nail boards to the bottom so that it will not topple, and decorate it with silver and gold. And I was like, why do we do that tradition anyway? So I was putting that out. And it was funny because he lived in Los Angeles, and I had asked him, well, maybe I should look into Hanukkah, a menorah or something. And he goes, let me try to get this straight. So you want to get rid of one dead tree and then buy another dead tree. And I go, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. Interesting. But I don't know. I think the symbolism
exactly.
is a vessel, and we're like vessels.
To me, American people think that things like Christmas, oh, it's gone on forever. This is the way it's always been. No, it hasn't. Christmas was started basically by Macy's. It was started as a way of profiting commercially, within the last 100 years. I mean, at one time, it actually used to be illegal to celebrate Christmas in the United States of America. It was actually illegal at one time. People knew this, but
it was called Saturnalia, and it was a lot of debauchery and
commerce,
such
orgies. Oh, commerce takes over. Commerce is king, right?
And I was kind of being reminded of April Fools. Did you ever know about that? When the Hebrew people, they would celebrate at the beginning of the year, was around April type, March, April. And when, I don't know if it was Constantine or some Roman Pope, they said they had to do away with all things Hebrew, get rid of the Sabbath, get rid of the unleavened breads, get rid of all of the holy days. So then they switched the calendar. That's Pope Gregorian calendar is what we are on now. But I think it's interesting that the way that they were getting people to not celebrate the beginning of the year around April is they were calling it April Fools. And then they were making people run on all these errands and do all these things that, I don't know, there's a lot of interesting things around that. But I was kind of thinking right now with the stuff that's going on right now, they're really trying to make a big shift and change everybody into this new world order type of thing using this COVID scam. And it's kind of reminding me of how they did with the April Fools type of thing, you know, just condemn all the people that wanted to continue in the truth.
I think the beginning of the United States was the beginning of the New World Order. I mean, they called it the Great Experiment. Well, why would they call it that? Because it was something new. They wanted to try a new way of doing things. And I think that what we're really seeing today is that it's just getting exposed. They're just showing their hand. Well, we're really starting to see how much it's really here that, and we never realized it. You know, we'd let it get a stronger and stronger stronghold as time went on. Until now, it's got to be obvious to everybody.
I think media has been playing their hand, the sleight of hand, and still fooling a lot of people. Because in my area in California, I got one phone call today. This lady is from another country and she knows what I know, but I don't know anybody around here that knows what's going on. They're just following.
Well, yeah. Yeah, especially being in California. I mean, that's the left coast, right? But you know, people in other countries are really waking up, mostly because they've got their boot on their neck. And people in Australia are really waking up. I've been talking to people from Ukraine that are going, what do we do? Well, we've been listening to your talk show for a couple of years and you got to help us. It's like, no, you can only help yourself, you know. Uh, there's a word that got beaten out of all of us when we were like 3 years old. It's the word no. We got to go back to using the word no again, and the word mine.
Yeah,
My body is mine. We got to go back to using the words mine and no again, because they made everybody beat those out of their kids when they were 3, 4 years old.
That's true. Good observation. Very good. Well,
so we got anybody else on here? Who else is on here with us? Let me take a look at the board.
Yeah.
It's us. Just us.
You and I having a little
just us.
Fireside chat.
A little fireside chat.
That's okay, because other people will want to, you know, stumble upon this. And I know that you know a lot more than I do. So I was wondering if possibly for those people like the lady that I had to deal with today, she's just got herself a US citizenry because she's from another country. She's just wondering, what should I do? I'm a US citizen now. Oh my gosh. She was asking me, should I renounce it? I'm like, well, you're not really that chattel piece of paper. You're not really an American either, but I'm just saying, well, what kind of advice would you give to somebody right now that's not wanting to follow orders because they're not wanting to be mandated because they're not an employee?
Well, it doesn't even come down to like the whole employee thing of the U.S. Or federal government, because the federal government, you know, I laughed when everybody was talking about, oh, if Biden becomes president, he's going to mandate a mask order. And I said, I hope he becomes president. In fact, you can do a search on my Facebook history and look for my prediction, because before he was elected, I predicted he would be elected. And I hoped he would. And the reason why is because it would prove to people how far the long arm, actually the short arm of the president is. Because sure enough, right after he was elected, he came out with his mandate for masks. And what did he say? It was mandated for all federal employees.
Did he say
And
that?
then yes, it's in his freaking executive order. And for everybody else, it was a 100-day challenge.
Is that like an
So
ice
if you were
challenge?
not a federal employee, yeah, he could only give you a challenge.
An ice bucket
He
challenge?
couldn't mandate it on you.
Hmm.
So that shows how much power there is there. The only real power comes down to the collective, and a perception. If you have a collective perception that there's power and everybody around you thinks there's power, you're kind of screwed. And that's kind of where people are today. But they have to realize that when it comes down to it, by international law, which is guess what? The US has to fall under international law. International law, sorry to the patriots, the Constitution is not supreme. International law and treaties are okay. And by international law, no, they can't do this crap to you. They can't do it. You just have to stand on it. The one thing the patriots say that is correct is if you don't stand on your rights, you don't have any. Well, guess what? If you don't stand on the freaking laws that these so-called authorities are supposed to follow, if you don't hold them to it and bring it up and say, how do you answer to this? Well, then guess what? You don't have those powers, do you?
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And back to that citizen thing is not you.
Right.
That's narcolepsy. That's joining of the fake. That's personification. That's joining of the artificial with the real. That's the joining of the dead with the real. Okay.
Narcolepsy is when you fall asleep.
The citizen. Okay.
Necromancy.
Not narcolepsy. That
when you're talking to the dead.
necromancy. Yeah, necromancy. You're tying into. It's all about necromancy, and that's what they do in the courts. What do they do? They're practicing freaking witchcraft in there. They're priests and priestesses in there. They're using necromancy.
Yeah.
And they're joining you to something that is fake, artificial, not real. I don't like to call it dead because in order for something to be dead, it had to have life at some point. Idolatry. Yeah, you just don't give it life.
Right.
And the citizen is something that the state creates, and they can have control over the citizen. And if you want to wear the citizen hat, then guess what? Yeah, they got control over you. If you refuse to wear the citizen hat, go back to Jeremiah 1:5. What was said in Jeremiah 1:5? What did the creator say there? Said, I knew you in the womb.
Mm-hmm. Before you were.
I knew you before you were created.
Mm-hmm.
I ordained you as a prophet among the nations. Well, what does that mean? He ordained you? That meant that he has superior jurisdiction. So why are you giving up that jurisdiction for man's jurisdiction? That's what the people did. That's what the Israelites did in 1 Samuel 8. They said, we want a king.
Mm-hmm.
We want a king sitting on the throne like everybody else has.
Mm-hmm.
And the creator said, listen, fine. If you want the king, that's good. But here's what's going to happen. Your sons are going to go off to fight battle. Your girls are going to become his maidens. He is going to take the best of your crops.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people need to go read 1 Samuel 8 because what was said there is exactly the way everything runs today. It was laid out perfectly. And that was what, almost 3,000 years ago. It was laid out perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's been said that people get the government they deserve. Because guess what? If you don't want to live under your own self-determination and take care of your own shit, and you want some other man to take care of it for you, let me ask people something. Who do you know in life personally that you would turn over everything to and say, you can make all my decisions for me? Where I should live, when I should pay my bills, what kind of car I should buy? Who do you know? Nobody knows anybody like that. So why would you think that you can run to the voting polls and
Mhm.
elect somebody you don't know from Adam that's going to make all these decisions for you?
Right.
That's insanity.
Yeah, because we're really forfeiting everything. It's almost like back in the garden again, when Eve was there in the garden and Satan came in the form of the serpent, and he was saying, hey, you can do this and you can do that. And did God really say, and hey, just go ahead and do this? And when they did that, they forfeited everything that way. And we're supposed to be, if I don't know where you believe or what your belief is, but when Christ came down in the form of man, we've been taught that he did get killed, he got murdered. He willingly went to his death for the truth, that he came to teach the people to follow the commands. And some people have taught that, the blood, when it went to the earth, it was redeeming the woman, or it was redeeming back. And then there was that prophecy about, like you had said earlier in the part 1, about Satan is going to bruise his, is it head? And he's going to bruise his heel. Is that
Yeah.
what?
I mean, so, right.
The seed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's difficult
Well, and you
to
know
do
what? And
that.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. If Yeshua came here and he was a son, a creation of God, and he came here and gave his life for the remission of all of our future sins, then
I don't know about that.
technically,
I don't know. I believe it.
but that's what's preached.
Yeah.
But that's what's preached.
Right. Yeah.
So my answer to that would be, then you need to sin away. You need to sin as much as you possibly can. Otherwise, you are negating everything he did on the cross.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
need to be committing as many sins as possible.
That's what they're
Otherwise,
teaching.
that death on the cross was worthless.
Yeah, they are teaching that. It's really terrible. Like, I went to this one place and they're teaching that there's no such thing as sin because Jesus died on the cross for all sin. Therefore, there's no more sin in the world. I'm like, no, people still do really bad things. Hello. No, that's not right.
What
That's false.
What did Yeshua say? The disciples came to Yeshua, came to Jesus, and they said, what do we do after you're gone? And he said, you listen to my brother, James the Just. He's going to teach the way. Because that's what Yeshua is teaching, is the way you should live, the way you should operate, your life, what you should be doing. And he said, you want to know what to do in the future? Follow James, listen to James. And guess what happened? Here comes along the Vatican, and the Vatican is pushing who? They're pushing Peter. You got to follow Peter. Peter is the rock upon which the church will be built. Peter is the one. And Peter was the one running around with Paul, and Paul was teaching falsehoods to everybody. And today's Christianity or churchianity is nothing but Pauline doctrine.
There's something
I've
that was
challenged
so
many.
interesting. There was something so interesting when he was saying, Simon Bar-Jonah, who do men say that I am? He says, well, some think that you're John the Baptist, and some people think you're a prophet or a teacher. And he says, who do you say I am? And he says, you are Christ, or, the Son of the living God. And he says, flesh and blood did not reveal that to you, but my Father in heaven revealed that to you. And I'm going to call you Peter, the rock. He changed his name to the rock, Peter, Petra. But it was upon that revelation that God can speak to you, that he's going to build his church upon that God or the creator can speak to you. It wasn't about building it on a man. It wasn't about following another man. He says, if you love me, you'll obey my commands. And then he also said, who is my brother and my mother and my sister? Those who do the will of my Father in heaven. And I believe that we are to be following the way, the truth, and the life. It's not built upon a man, but it's inside of us that we know what's the right way to do. And that's to love God and love, each other, treat others how we want to be treated.
All right. Let me ask you something.
Mhm.
When Yeshua said to Peter, upon this rock I will build my church, did he say, upon you, the rock, I will build this church, or upon this rock I will build my church?
Rock of revelation that God can speak to you.
He said this rock, right?
Mhm.
Okay. No, hold on. Hold
Flesh
on.
and
I'm
blood did
talking,
not
let's get literal here.
reveal. Yeah. He said, flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father
Let's
in
get
heaven revealed it to you. And upon this
let's
rock.
get literal here.
Mhm.
This rock. Okay. What rock were they standing on at the time?
I don't know. Uh,
Most people don't.
no.
What hill were
Golgotha? I don't know where they were.
no
standing. Gibraltar?
what hill were they was Satan cast down to, and the angels?
I don't know.
That's where they were standing. That's where they were standing.
Where? What?
Where
Which?
Satan and his angels had been cast down to. And that sits on the 33-degree parallel.
What was the name of the place? Is it a Greek place or like where the
Oh,
Greeks
it
are?
starts with an H. Starts
Oh,
with an H. I haven't paid attention to it in a long time.
oh, is it a Greek place where were like Hermes and Hercules and all them type of something?
Yeah. There's a temple. In fact, I'll tell you what, the United Nations has built a complex on that freaking mountain now.
Wow. And that's kind of like how Satan says, I will rise above, or I will try to, get up higher than God or whatever.
No, he never said he never said he'd be higher. He said, I will be like God. Because he knew he can't be higher than him. He said, I will be like him.
And that's the same temptation that he said to Adam and Eve. You'll be like God.
You will be like God. There you go. It
Mhm.
all comes around in a circle, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Well, anyway, this has been a good chat tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of different belief systems in the world, and it is difficult to navigate sometimes through them. The sleights of hands and the mistranslations, or even just the interpretations, can really make people go a different way.
Go on to the Great Oracle, Google, DuckDuckGo, or Bing or whatever, and look up Mount Hermon.
Oh, is that
And check out Mount Hermon.
Oh, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Hermon.
That's is that in Greece where they worship?
No, it's north of Jerusalem.
Oh, interesting. So I'm wondering if maybe some of that we've been told mythology was maybe them telling their children, the Greek people telling their children that that type of stuff was happening. And we've just been told it was myths. What do you think? Because of like Hercules and I don't know, there were giants in the land, right? So could have these things.
Right. And there still are. Right, there still are. That's why I try, people need to comprehend, they need to realize that the Bible was not written to you. It might have been written for you. You might be able to use it, but those books of the Bible were not written to you. Go to the Gospels. Go to the things that were written. They were written to certain churches, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Not us. And the reason why it was written to them is because those people would comprehend what was being said in them. People today, we don't know what their culture was back then. You have to go study their culture back then in order to realize what was being taught. We're trying to apply it to our culture today. It doesn't work that way.
Right, exactly. And I did have a website that I did, paracleteministries-org.webnode.com. And it was amazing, just some of the stuff that was coming through me. I don't know that I could take the credit for what was coming through me at the time, but it's interesting that I was talking about different things, different, pages on there. I'd have to kind of go back and look at it again to see, if my belief system has changed even from back then, or if I'm going to learn something new all over again, just reading it. But there's so many different things, because when you get in these different churches, you're going to be getting inculcated towards, their money-making schemes. And, them getting you into trouble means more counseling sessions for them, type of thing, or they're going to be benefiting one way or another.
Which means, yeah, that means more money for them, right? Well, you have to realize, if you're not learning, if you're not growing, if something's not growing, what's it doing? It's dying. And
Mhm.
so if you're stuck with the same old belief system
Mhm.
that they've been preaching for the last 100 years,
Mhm.
and nothing, no growth, no spiritual fruits have come from them in the last 100 years, then yeah, you're not moving forward.
Mhm.
You're
Right.
dying.
Yep. If we're looking in the mirror and we're not changing our character, because name is for function and your character. If we're not growing up from glory to glory and we keep going back or doing the same things, we're not really growing. We're either stagnant or arrested in our development, like that show, Arrested Development. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah.
But we do need
And what did Yeshua say? What did Yeshua say he would do with the stagnant, with the lukewarm? He
spit
said, I
you
will
out of
spew
his
you out of
mouth.
my mouth.
Yeah. Either be hot
Yeah.
or
So
cold, but don't be lukewarm.
yeah. So you need to be growing, and you really need to be able to look in the mirror every several days and see somebody new. Because if you're growing, you'll see somebody new. You will, because
Mhm.
you've got new ideas. You're growing spiritually. You're maybe treating other people differently. You're living differently. You're
Mhm.
going to see a new person.
Mhm.
Kind of sounds like being born again, doesn't it?
Born from above, up here,
Born from above. Well, and you know what?
renewing your mind.
Churchianity today wants to teach you that you have to be born again. Okay, good. Go to the Bible and find being born again. What does the scripture say about being born again? Listen to what Yeshua says about it. Screw Paul. Listen to what, if you're listening to anybody, aren't you going to listen to the guy that died on the cross? What did he say about being born again? He said, it's like the wind. You don't know where it comes from or where it goes. You should not ponder it. And we shouldn't ponder it. We should actually see the reflections of it in our life.
Yeah, I remember listening to a radio station while I was driving home from work once, and they were talking about, they were some psychologists that were Christian psychologists, and they were talking about how when you're young, it takes so long before you can become an adult. It's like you're just pining and waiting for you to hurry up and grow up. And then when you get to age 21 or whatever it is, it's going really fast. And then when you get really old, it goes really, really fast. And they were talking about how the frontal lobe is not developed properly. When you're younger, it's still growing. And then by the time you get to a certain age, middle age or something, it's there. And just time just really starts to go fast. And life is a vapor. It does say that in the Bible too, in Psalms. Life is a vapor. But like we're not cognizant of, you know, we're not always cognizant.
I know 80-year-olds that aren't there yet. That pineal gland or whatever, actually it's around like age 30, 35 for males once it's done. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't wake up. They don't come to the age of discernment. The legal system says you come to the age of discernment at age 18, but most people, you don't come to the age of discernment until you really comprehend what's happening, what things are really about.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to remain a piece on the checkerboard, then you haven't come to the age of discernment yet.
And it really does boil down to what we hear and what we see and what we say. It really does, because who we hang out with, it says in the Bible, don't make friends with an angry man, lest you learn his ways. And the thing is that, I studied a little bit about Dr. Emoto and his scientific experiments on water. And when we speak life and positive and good things to that water, it was showing crystals. Yeah.
That's my water plasma station right there.
Mm-hmm.
And on the back side of it is a bunch of stickers that have a whole bunch of positive words on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a piece of organite up here on the top of it.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Can you explain briefly that pyramid thing that you got there?
Organite? Organite comes from, what was his name? People could normally spell it right off. He came from Europe, and he thought that life would be a lot freer in America. Unfortunately, in America, he died in prison, and all his shit got freaking confiscated. But he was showing how you could use the ether, the energy around you, to cure cancer and different things like that. And so when you make organite correctly, with what he did, it needs to be in like 7 different layers: organic, inorganic, organic, inorganic. And you can actually put a meter up to it and see where the negative ions are flowing out. Negative ions are actually good things.
Yeah.
At the bottom, it pulls in the positive ions, which are bad things. Okay. And so it's a transmuter, is what it is. So it pulls out the bad and spews out good. It just like Niagara Falls. Okay. Niagara Falls is well known for a lot of people getting engaged there and getting married there, because people get this happy feeling, this loving feeling when they're there. Well, the reason why is because waterfalls spew out negative ions.
Oh.
You can go online and look up light bulbs for negative ions. And you can put light bulbs in your home that produce negative ions, and that gives a positive energy inside your house.
I have a hair salon, and in my studio, I have a old-fashioned hair dryer, and the motor is ceramic. And I discovered that ceramic motors kick out negative ions. And so when we plug it into the wall with electricity and the people go under it with their wet hair, they're getting like negative ions all right here. So I have it right in front of my station. So I get a little bit of that too. If it gets too hot, I get hot flashes, but I try to cover them so I don't get that part. But but it's interesting that the hair looks beautiful when it has negative ions. Looks very shiny.
Yeah.
Keeps the water in
And
it.
after their hair is dry, they walk out of your shop. They walk out of your shop feeling on top of the world.
They skip. It's funny. They want me to take a
There you
picture
go.
of them
They
and they're
skip.
smiling. It's funny. But I think anybody who has,
That's the negative ions.
yeah. And I tell them stories about when you're at
Yeah.
the beach and you're walking on the sand, you have the electrical with the water and the salt. There's a lot of negative ions. Even
Yeah.
looking at that picture that you have back there makes me feel like I'm at the beach. It gives a good feeling, happy feeling.
Well, you know what? It ticked me off because in this place there wasn't a window on that wall. So I said, okay, I'll put my own window there.
There you go.
And that's the window I chose to put.
I love it. It looks great. It looks like the Florida Keys. I
I
love
can
the
go.
Florida Keys, even though it's probably Hawaii or some
Oh,
other tropical
no, yeah.
Tahiti
I love these
island.
too. I've spent a lot of time there. Yeah. But
Yeah. But
yeah,
that
so
is
yeah,
good
I want to walk out
stuff.
in my living room in the morning.
I
Yeah.
wonder if you could put negative ions in a cigarette and just do like ceramic air instead of tobacco or something. Wonder if, or put,
You really want to go down that road?
let's go there, shall we? Like love.
Okay. I've got a buddy by the I've got a good friend by the name of Halo Marquise.
Mhm.
And I hope I'm not giving away any proprietary information here, but he found that he could take what was it? Not x-ray in the hospital, but you get a oh Lord, why I go away from my mind?
Electromagnetic frequency. Are you talking about
No.
radio waves or
Yeah.
Wi-Fi?
That anyway, he could go and he could no. But he could go and he could take this and he restructured it to where it puts a different frequency into either metals or minerals. Okay. I wear this bracelet. It's got metal on it. This came from him.
Was it titanium
This
or
bracelet,
copper?
it's got metal on it, came from him. Doesn't matter.
Mm.
Any metal or mineral. I've got this necklace, came from him. Okay. He makes bands, silicone bands that have mineral in it that he's infused this frequency into. The shaman residence. There's other residences that help with other things and can totally help you with your body. I don't know if I've talked about it here. I was killed in a car accident a few years ago. And so I spent 20 years on painkillers. And when I met with him and talked with him, I said, dude, I want to get off these. He's like, try these out. The next day, I no longer use the hydrocodone, the morphine, any of that stuff. And it was stuff I've been on every day for years.
Oh.
And I walked away from it with no problem, no side effects, nothing. Copper, because I first learned about this when I was younger. I was living on an Indian reservation.
Mm-mm.
And I was having problems because of a restaurant I worked at. I was working as the fry chef. All right. I was taking care of sautés and stuff. So I was doing this all the time with my wrist with pans. Okay. And it was probably the onset of carpal tunnel. And I talked to an Indian guy. He said, listen, go to one of the little Indian shops for tourists. And he said, buy a copper bracelet. And I went and did that. And within like 2 days, it was gone. I was like, wow. And so when I was turned on to this by Halo Marquise, I started looking looking up frequency of gold, frequency of silver, frequency of copper. They all carry their own frequencies and they all have the same effect on your body.
What about like stones?
So stones all carry different frequencies. I don't have my bag of stones next to me. They're in the next room. But yeah, different stones carry different frequencies as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I have a
whether you're
timeshare. I
carrying-
go to Sedona, Arizona. Whoa, man, they're all about portals and stones and rocks, and you go into the rock shop. It's like beautiful rocks and all that cool. I don't know about that kind of stuff, but this thing about ceramic.
Here's a good story for you. My mom came down several years ago and came and she stayed at my new house. She stayed in the second bedroom and I didn't tell her anything about it. But that second bedroom was the room that I used to make my organite in. And before she came, I put everything away. I had cupboards and stuff in there. And so I took all the stones, the crystals, put them, made sure they're all back in their own drawers and stuff like that. Didn't tell her anything about what I used the room for. And the first day after she stayed, she was like, "Oh my gosh, Bryan, I have never slept so good as I did last night. I don't understand what it was."
That's
And I
great.
just kind of smirked myself. I didn't say anything.
Uh-huh.
And I waited till the second day. Second day, she's like, "Bryan, I don't know what's going on. I have never slept the way I've slept the last 2 nights." I said, "Well, let me explain something to you."
Faraday cage.
So so I started telling her how all those things work. And because she's not somebody that snoops, she was living out of her suitcase. She wasn't going into the drawers and see what's in that room. That's not the way she is. And when I told her that, and I walked her into the room and I opened the drawers, I said, "Here, these are the crystals in these drawers. These are the stones in these drawers." And she was like, "No way." I said, "Yep." She's like, "I would have never known."
Do you think it changes the atmosphere, whatever the oxygen molecules in the room or something with all of the metals and the inorganic and the organic materials? It just like purifies the air and cleanses it or something?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. It changes the energy. And now there's some stones I've worn, particular probably hematite, that when I am around somebody that is usually negative,
Hmm.
a hematite stone on my necklace will break and I'll have to replace it.
That's wild.
And the first time it happened, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." And then when I was around that person a second time and a third time, and it happened both those times, I was like, "Whoa, there's something to this," because the stones know.
Whoa, that's kind of interesting. You know how it says in the Bible about if we don't cry out to the Lord, that the rocks will cry out? That's kind of
The
interesting.
rocks will cry out. There you go. Go figure. Go figure. All right, I'm ready to jump, girl.
Okay, well, I think that would be a really good thing for everybody to definitely cry out to the Creator during all this chaos stuff and, try to, as much as we love looking at all the scary stuff going on the internet and stuff, it's probably a good idea to have breaks and look at positive things too. Thank you so much for being there. And that cat gives you so much comfort, I see. And pet your animals too.
Well, what did the Creator tell everybody to do? If people want stuff to change, He told everybody what to do. He said, "If my people who are called by my name will pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways," that means repent, turn from their wicked ways, "then will I hear from heaven and hear their voice and heal their land." Well, I think things have to get pretty damn bad before people are going to start seeking His face and crying out and repenting and changing their evil ways. Right now, people seem to have no problem with continuing with their evil ways. Oh, all I have to do is wear a mask. Okay, cool. I can still continue and being. Never mind. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. You have a good evening.
Hey, you have a wonderful evening. Everybody enjoy the blessings that the Creator wants to give you. And being blessed doesn't mean being less or be less. That's bullshit.
I agree.
Anyway,
I agree. Thank you. Good night.
good night.